grapes that we have through here, about 200 tonnes a year, will go through this press and the big brother next door. So with reds, we're crushing the skins, but we're keeping the skins within a tank for at least a week to 2 days before it goes in the press. So that's all about absorbing colour and absorbing tannins and flavours from the skins. And then after those 2 weeks, they end up in the press and get pumped into the tank room. With the whites and the sparkling varieties, they end up going straight in the press. And the programme's running about 2.5 hours, and we can extract all the juice that we need to from the presses. It can get quite technical with how much the different qualities and the different press fractions of the juice. Typically the early press juice is the best quality, and the heavier press juice is where we start losing flavours because of oxidation and bitterness from the skins. So after the pressing, the wine is pumped into our tank room. So inside here we've got 94 tanks. Again, that's split off differently from the 200 tonnes, so different tanks for reds, whites, rosés and sparklers. The juice is settled over the first night, where we can get nice clean juice. The second day, where we then start the fermentation, which typically lasts 4 to 5 weeks. And all the time the tanks are getting measured through harvest, so we can keep a close eye on them to make sure the fermentation and the yeast are happy and they're doing exactly what we need them to do. Yeah, the only thing we'll say is manage to get it on. Alright, very good. How much stock come in about 5? Okay. Right. So I'm Ben Hunt, winemaker here at Halfpenny Green Vineyards. This is our bottling room. So once all the tank work's been done, all the hard work from the previous harvest has all been done and settled and filtered, we then move the wine into this room, which is where we pass it through the bottling line. So we start on the left side, running about 1,500 bottles an hour. We wash the inside of the bottles. As the wine's coming through our final sterile filtration, we head and fill the bottles with this unit. Then we pass up further ahead, and this is where we screw cap and close the tops. 90% of all wine then heads off into the background, where it's stored away in cages before it needs to come down back for labelling. So we bring the cage back down for labelling when we need it. We then go through our exterior bottle washer, which is basically a car wash for the bottles. So it washes, goes through an air blow dryer, and then we head finally down to our packaging unit, which can apply capsules, champagne capsules, heat shrink. We've got 4 label stations on there and a neck label, which finishes the bottles off. They're then hand checked and packaged on the end here and palletised by hand before finally being dispatched. So with our English sparkling wine that we produce, once the bottle's laid down for 3 years with its dead yeast, and it will be fermented out of sugar, so the wine will be fizzy and in its ready state. We then pass it through our gyro pallet, which you can see in the background there. So that is getting all the yeast cells from the side of the bottle, and it's a 7-day rotation where we eventually end up with all the dead yeast sediment from the sides ending up into the bottom of the cap, just about 1/2 inch of dead yeast sediment in the bottom. So the next process is where we have to remove the dead yeast sediment and finalise it by putting the cork in. So we actually, the bottles enter in here where we freeze 1 inch of the neck. So we're running glycol down there, which can freeze at minus 23 degrees. It freezes 1 inch of the neck. The next unit is where the disgorgement happens, where the bottle enters the unit, and it lifts the cap off the bottle, and that's actually, by the pressure of the wine underneath it, blasts out the ice plug, and within that ice plug is all the dead yeast sediment that comes out with it. So as the bottle comes off this unit, the wine is perfectly clear. Then we go on to our final unit for the wine sake, which is where we can add the final dosage, which is basically our final chance to adjust the sweetness and to add any final bits of adjustments we need to. Then after that unit, the wine will be fully finished, so we inject the cork on this side and then put one of the champagne muzzles on the top, which basically is to hold the cork in from blowing out. Once we've finished with this process, and it is quite a labour intensive job here at Halfpenny Green, we try and do 1,000 bottles a week, which is limited by the gyro pallet. After that, really, we go back into cages, and again it's stored away before we can head off to the labeller, where it gets packaged and then dispatched.
Hi, I'm Clive Vickers from Halfpenny Green Wine Estate. Today here we've got some of our wines which I'd like to talk you through. We do 4 sparkling wines. We have a white traditional method which is grown from Chardonnay, Pinot Noir and Sauvignon Blanc. We have a pink which is in Marks and Spencer's, again from Pinot Noir but also Sauvignon Blanc. Our premium fizz is purely from Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, aged from 2011 for the premium market. And quite interestingly, we have a red fizz. This is from the Rondo grape that we normally make red wines from, which is quite interesting, chilled red sparkling wine. In the still wines, they're available in Marks and Spencer's and Waitrose across the UK, particularly the Longacre, which is from the Schomburger grape, one of our more full-bodied dry white wines, with a quite nice buttery finish to it. In our reds, we have a Pinot Noir, very popular now within English red wines. And also interestingly, we have a Rondo, which is a 15% full-bodied heavy red wine. And finally, from interest, we do a really nice sticky dessert wine from the Huxelreed grape called Late Harvest. This is from 2014, excellent with chocolate brownie.
Within 30-40 miles, we have back garden growers who bring in their 5 kilos of grapes, 10 kilos of grapes, you know, off one vine in the back of their garden. And each week we'll run a press load, and by the end of harvest we've got a tank which is about 2,000 bottles worth of what we call our communal tank. Now this stuff isn't going to be sold commercially, so we make it in a final wine. We treat it through our normal processes where we stabilise and filter it and bottle it sterile, and then they buy it back off us for the wine making costs of £3 a bottle. So we have massive interest year on year. It's spreading through word of mouth, and it's a great little thing for people with grapes in their back garden to end up with a decent bottle of rosé wine. Right, I'll get a light on here. These came in earlier. Is this your first year?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Oh, okay. Right, let's see, I'll stick them in.
I think they're black amber.
They look like it because, believe it or not, they're black amber, and they look the same. Usually wine grapes aren't that usually, that big usually. They're typically more like that sort of size. There's your basket.
The vine outside and bring the grapes in through into the greenhouse.
Oh, brilliant.
So it's only one plant.
Well, yeah, you could either leave them to the birds or have a nice bottle of wine at the end of this. Yeah.
That sounds good.
What I'll do then, because you've got 8 bottles worth there.
Oh, great.
8 bottles worth. So I'll take your details, and then next year, I basically, when the wine's finished, I'll give you a call, and then you can come and collect your share.
Sounds good.
Serious, we've got about 35 to 40 serious commercial vineyards that are delivering into us, which is one of the reasons why we've got so many tanks in here as well. 3 or 4 in Wales, 2 down in Bedfordshire and Buckinghamshire. Then we've got 3 up from Yorkshire way, and we do 2 or 3 in Lincolnshire. But then there's quite a few that are coming in from Gloucestershire and around Worcester and the Midlands. So they're all adding up. They're all looking at expanding their production, which is one of the other reasons why we're going to be doubling this building within the next 5 years, because we're going to have to.